Trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed and confused with unhelpful information and advice? This podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax. I'm your host, Hannah Pern, a fertility acupuncturist and passionate advocate for better fertility education and support. Our aim is to empower you with information to support your fertility journey and provide a community for connection with people who get where you're at. If you'd like to join us or work with us in clinic in London or across the UK, all the information is in the show notes at the end. Before we jump into today's episode, I'm quickly here to let you know that we are opening full-time for fertility acupuncture in central London, Victoria at the end of Feb. And if you're not in London, we have clinics around the UK and we work online. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Don't Tell Me to Relax. I am joined by fertility nutritionist extraordinaire, Kirsty Harrison. We are going to be discussing the topic of egg quality. So we've been doing a series on Instagram and we had our podcast episode last week with Marka. And I thought that it would be great to get Kirsty in to talk about ways you can improve and enhance your egg quality through nutrition and lifestyle. So before we get into all of that, Kirsty, would you like to introduce yourself to anybody out there who may not know who you are?
Hello, Hannah. Thank you for having me. I am a nutritionist that specialises in fertility and women's health.
You've been on the show many times before.
I've been on the show many times before.
You are our top guest.
Thanks.
So before we get started, I'm gonna come out with a few statistics around egg quality. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about when we're talking about egg quality, there are two parts to egg quality. So there are the genetic part of egg quality, of which we can't change. And we talked about this with Marka last week. And then there is the part of egg quality that is influenced by lifestyle, nutrition, blood flow, inflammation, all of those things that we're going to go on and talk about. What I thought would be really good is to start with some statistics around the percentage of eggs that are chromosomally normal by age. That is a very difficult sentence for someone like me to come out with, because I think it's really helpful to know about the parts of this that we can control and what we can't control. So it is estimated that under the age of 35, approximately about 70% of people have genetically normal eggs. From 35 to 40, that number goes to about 50. And then from 40 and over, the number decreases to about 10 to 15%. And obviously, we're talking statistics, we're making generalizations. It's impossible to predict each person as an individual. But I think it's really helpful to know that. And the genetic part of this, we have no control over. So the part that we're talking about today with Kirsty is about those genetically normal eggs, how they are matured, how they go through that process of follicular genesis is the bit that we're really interested in, because it's what we can do to maximize and optimize the genetically normal ones. So Kirsty, have I just made up the word follicular genesis, or is that
No, follicular genesis is a word, Anna. But it is the process of follicular development. And also, I think so we tend to think that ovulation just happens in a month, but actually your follicles are recruited 3 months prior to that. So, which I think is an important thing to remember, because that's the bit where nutrition and lifestyle, any kind of other support is really key, because you do get that 3-month window, which is why a lot of practitioners always want to work for 3 months to get you for the best progress.
So it's all about those 3 months. So Where do we even begin to start? Like, what do we mean by improving the environment for those 3 months?
Well, I think it comes down to, it's so multifaceted. There are so many things that can impact egg quality, and it would be impossible to cover them all. And one thing I'm not going to do is talk about blood sugar balancing and hormone health, etc., because I think we've done that a number of times before, and that can be found on an earlier podcast. But what I want to focus on more now is so there are certain foods that have been well researched to support your egg quality, but we also want to look at whether you've got any inflammation. You want to look at your environmental toxins, you want to look at the exercise that you're doing, how much sleep you're getting, and all of that kind of thing. But I thought initially we could just start on a few of the really sort of supportive nutrients that we know are beneficial to help focus specifically on egg quality. So, shall we do that? Are you happy with that approach?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the ones that come up, I think, most frequently, and the ones I get messages about most frequently, the first one is CoQ10. And that's really important for egg health because it plays a role in ATP production. So that's what's giving your energy. That's what's giving your cells energy to be able to carry out their metabolic functions. It also protects the mitochondria, and our eggs have more mitochondria than any other cell in the human body. So we really need to protect those from damage from reactive oxidative species, which are basically free radicals going around causing damage. So we want to protect them from that. So CoQ10 plays a really important role there. And so you can get those from lots of different foods. And we'll talk about supplements a bit later. But oily fish are a good source. Chicken, pork, broccoli. There's various nuts and seeds and things that you can eat that will help you increase your CoQ10 levels. So that's a good one to focus on. Omega-3 fatty acids, they're good. And omega-3 fatty acids, I'm struggling to speak today, are essential fatty acids, which means your body can't produce them yourself. You have to provide the essential fatty acids yourself. So they're really important because omega-3 is really important for FSH production. So that's follicle stimulating hormone. So it makes sense that you would need it for that period of time. But it's also anti-inflammatory and helps support blood flow, which I think we learned from Marcus' podcast last week as well is really important. It also protects the cell membranes. So omega-3 is really important. So good sources of omega-3, oily fish, but if you don't eat fish, it's not a problem. You can have chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, eggs, and grass-fed meat. Generally, grass-fed animals are good sources of omega-3, and they're really important. Another one that comes up quite a lot that's generally, which again we'll talk about when we come to supplements as well, but NAC is really important. That's a precursor, so like a building block of glutathione. And glutathione is your master antioxidant. And so that's really important, again, when protecting our mitochondrial health. It also plays a really important role in reducing inflammation, which I think is, which we know is important. So NAC, food sources are things like eggs, chicken and turkey, yogurt, cheese, oats, legumes, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, garlic and onions. They're good sources of NAC. And again, to protect our cells, antioxidants play a really important role. Basically, we're providing your body with the nutrient to be able to protect and look after and mop up free radicals. So what we want to do is lots of colourful veg, lots of berries, lots of dark chocolate, leafy green veg, cruciferous veg, all of that kind of stuff are really good. Eating a wide variety of colourful foods is really important for protecting cellular health.
So can I just ask, or can you explain, when you say mitochondrial health, because we hear this a lot, what does that mean?
So the mitochondria are essentially the little powerhouses of your cells. That's what's going to provide energy. So they're little organelles, and the chemical energy produced by the mitochondria is stored in a small molecule called adenosine triphosphate, which is ATP, essentially.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a very long, drawn-out answer to your question.
No, but it's really good to know. And I think it's really helpful to remember that an egg is a cell. That's what we're talking about.
It is, yeah.
And it's the largest cell in the body. So when we talk about cellular health and all of that, that's why it refers to egg quality as well. And sometimes, I know before I worked in this world, I had no idea that was that. So it's really helpful to understand why we're talking about cellular health and why the mitochondria are really important for egg quality as well, and how they do get damaged in our busy, filled life.
Completely. Also, I think it's quite important to remember all these processes, so follicular genesis, but everything involved in fertility and everything that we have to go through requires a huge amount of energy. Every process requires energy at some point. So if you're not putting in the right nutrition or looking after yourself properly, and trying to protect yourself from the crazy toxic world, it is going to cause damage. There's not much we can do about it. So we do have to take steps a little bit to try and mop up that damage. Yeah. Go on.
Right, no, go on.
I was just going to say another thing I want to talk about, which is really important, is vitamin D.
Yes.
which obviously is better to get from the sun, but we don't see that very often. So it's very important to test, but it's really important for ovarian function. So yeah, test and supplement that for sure.
And so you would, rather than just take a random supplement, would you always test first?
But vitamin D, yes, because if you don't need it, then I wouldn't. Although I'd argue that most people probably need it at this time of year, and it's the longest winter ever. The other supplements the other foods that I've mentioned, and that's pretty much the main focus on food there, is that all of those foods are available in supplement form. But whilst supplements are really useful, it is really good to do it via food as well. Like, your body is much more capable of using it if it comes in food form. So food first and then supplements. But those are the things, apart from antioxidants, so things like the CoQ10 and the NAC and the omega-3, really good supplements to take to support egg quality.
Yes, and we often hear about CoQ10. We get asked about it a lot in the community and in clinic. Is there a dosage that you recommend, or is it different for different people depending on their diet, lifestyle?
Yeah, I'd say that's different for each individual, because it does very much depend on what they've got going on in their own health. Also, CoQ10, when you get what you pay for. Unfortunately, good forms of CoQ10 is expensive. But I would say for short term, if you can't invest in that, that's a good one to invest in, because the research is really strong behind it.
Yes, and I had a question then and it's completely gone. Oh yeah, I've got it. Why is it that CoQ10 is so expensive? Do you know?
I think it's the form that it comes in. So you can get it in various different versions. CoQ10 comes in very basic. Then you can get a ubiquinol and ubiquinol. And the ubiquinol is the one that's most readily absorbed by the body. But that one comes at a higher cost, unfortunately. And your body is able. So ubiquinol is also okay, but sort of standard cheap CoQ10 probably isn't doing a huge amount.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good to know, because the price of them wildly ranges, doesn't it?
Hugely. Yeah, really does. It's very difficult because it does really help. And so it sort of makes it a bit tricky, that one. But I'd say CoQ10 is a good one.
Yeah. So CoQ10, vitamin D, and an omega-3.
Yeah, an NAC potentially. But again, yeah, I would potentially always work with someone who could advise you. I wouldn't go out and wildly start supplementing with these things, but these are the ones that are sort of most well researched to support it.
Yeah. And so in terms of lifestyle, anything outside of nutrition, is there anything that you also think is a sensible thing to do? Because again, I always try to get across on the podcast about, anything extreme or full on can become really, really stressful and restrictive, and, can cause issues in itself. So where do you stand on the lifestyle? So let's start with drinking and smoking. I presume really bad for.
Yeah. Not great. No, smoking particularly really bad. Drinking in moderation occasionally, I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of issues, but you are going to run into the input that also has on your blood sugar levels, and wonky blood sugar levels are going to affect egg quality as well. So with that, it's sort of weighing up and looking at everything, looking at the big picture. If you're doing generally pretty good with everything else, then the odd glass of wine here or there is going to make much difference. There's other things that you can look at that are not nutrition focused and not necessarily lifestyles focused. So we need inflammation is quite a big one. Inflammation can be quite damaging. Chronic inflammation within the body can really affect our egg quality as well. So making sure that we look into what might be causing inflammation in the body. So you might be looking for any food sensitivities. Stress can be an impact, as we know. So try doing stress management, really making sure you cut down on high processed foods and saturated fats, as I'm sure most people are anyway. But also the environmental toxins and the endocrine disruptors that we're sort of surrounded by, even on receipts, but plastic water bottles, avoiding plastic water bottles, making sure we carry our food in glass things. Just little changes that you can make that will actually make a difference, that aren't sort of all consuming. Being mindful of the detergent you use for your clothes and the products you use to clean your home, etc. That can all make an impact as well.
Yeah, and I guess it's all the sort of small micro changes, when you add them up together, you're in the best possible environment you can do.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, often people talk about pans. I keep seeing loads of things about pans. Now I'm looking at all my pans. Do I need to change my pans?
We ideally want probably to avoid anything coated in any kind of non-stick
Yeah.
sort of covering. That's really good. That's really bad for our health on it. I mean, just generally, that's not great for us. So yeah, being mindful of that. But that can be quite a big expense. So
Yeah.
like gradually fading that in and out, I think is probably a good place to start. But also making sure that you wash your food organic when you can, buy the best quality meat that you can. Those small changes as well are quite good. Pans is a big one, yeah, because it's a really big one. But yeah, trying to change those if you can.
And anything else about lifestyle that's kind of not food or supplements that is good for egg quality?
Focusing on good quality sleep.
Yeah.
Like making sure that you're exercising. Like you want to support blood flow around your body. So movement is one of the best ways of doing that. So nothing overly stressful or impactful. Supporting your detox pathways. So making sure that, again, exercise is really good for that. Having a bit of a sweat is really good for that as well. Sleep is a big one. Really focusing on sleep, which is really tricky. I'm seeing so many clients who aren't sleeping at the moment, so it's a really difficult one. But yeah, focusing on that is good.
I'd say like sleep is like your superpower, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
in terms of if you think about, they talk about it from lots of different perspectives, don't they? About how your body restores itself. It's cellular regeneration.
Yeah.
When you sleep.
Yeah.
So sleeping well is really key, and yet so often overlooked, or people maybe like, it's easy to say, oh, it's not that bad, and when you dig into it a bit, it's not great.
It's not, but also it's that like loop, isn't it, that you start worrying about your sleep, so then you don't sleep, and then you're in a sort of a big vicious cycle. You can get a bit caught up in it. But yeah, taking really good steps to sort of make sure you see daylight as soon as you can in the morning. Use low level lighting in the evenings. Have a bedtime routine. Can be really supportive. All the stuff that our parents used to do to us when we were kids, like read before bed and have a bath. All of that kind of stuff is actually, I don't know why we stopped doing it when we're adults, because that actually helps. So all of that kind of stuff is really good. And not using your phone, blue light blocking glasses.
Yeah. And in many ways, it's like, I don't know what is the year that we need to go back to, but I guess it's like the year where we didn't buy food that was in plastic. So we went shops, like the butchers, the bakery, your vegetable, and you ate seasonally, and you didn't watch telly because the BBC finished at 9:00.
And you didn't have a mobile phone. That's the biggest problem. That's the biggest problem, mobile phones. But also the other thing I think is what the things that can also affect egg quality that I think are worth mentioning as well is if you've got any kind of immune dysregulation going on, which needs to be addressed. So autoimmune conditions and endometriosis or PCOS or anything along those lines, you will it's annoying, but you will have to work a bit harder to make sure that you're getting those nutrients in as well.
And that's because of the hormonal imbalance or the immune imbalance again.
Yeah, and just the overactive sort of immune response can be not very helpful.
And often on their Instagram, we see a lot of stuff around like egg quality diet plan and all these kind of programs that look like quite intense. Like, what do you think about those? Do you think they are generally a good idea to give it a try? Like, if you're going to go all out for like 3 months.
I suppose you've got nothing to lose. I mean, apart from the added stress of having to follow a regimen or regime, I suppose, of what you should and shouldn't eat, I can't see that it necessarily be a bad thing to do. But I would sort of say that making sure that you're having some kind of fruit or vegetable with at least one, maybe hopefully even 3 with every meal, making sure you're eating enough protein, you're getting your nuts and seeds and your good fats, and you're pretty much there. I don't think it needs to be overcomplicated. I think we just need to be mindful of the foods that we use and the environment around us a little bit as well with regards to toxins and things.
Yeah. And it's really difficult, isn't it? Because there's always that debate of, this idea of preparing for 3 months or sometimes 6 months. Like you say, you've got like endometriosis, PCOS, or like really menstrual cycles. You might need longer to sort of address the underlying imbalance. But there's always that deliberation, especially when you're looking at IVF, between people feel like their AMH is dropping every single month. They're, doing the work before you go for IVF. And I guess given that there is no test egg quality, so unlike sperm, which we can test it, someone can make 3 months of lifestyle and then we can see, yes, it's had an impact, or no, it hasn't. You can't do that with egg quality. And I think we were talking about that with markers. So it's really difficult to know how much to go down this road and how much to just crack on with your IVF if that's where you're at. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. I think I totally get why people go into IVF quickly when they get, especially with the NHS, when it comes up quite quickly, potentially you're suddenly told that you've got to go quite quickly. But I do think it's worth doing that prep before you go in, because you're going in then with the best quality building blocks and the best quality foundations, and you stand more chance of it working the first time than you do if you go in without doing any prep. So I do really do strongly advise doing 3 months prep if you can before going for any kind of treatment.
Yeah. And what about if your AMH is really low and the IVF doctor is saying you've got to go now?
This is a really tricky one, but you'd really want what eggs were there to be good quality. Like that's going to stand you in more of a chance. But I do also, that ticking clock of time is awful. And so I totally get why people do it. Yeah. But I would, definitely say prep is the way to go. Even if you could do a month, 2 months before, that would definitely still help.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it's like everyone. I always think in clinic, people have to make decisions based on, in the future, what are they going to look back and think? Are they going to look back and think, I wish I'd done this, that, and the other?
Yeah.
Or are they going to think, I'm glad I went when I went because I was feeling the time pressure? And often I think putting yourself in the future and looking back at what road feels better for you can be a way, because ultimately everybody has a different opinion about this, don't they? Lots and lots. Opinions, lots and lots of doctors are very much like, you go quickly, you don't waste your time, you get in that clinic. And lots of more holistic people like us are like, it's really valuable to take your time. So there's a lot, if you're a person trying to find out information, it's conflicting, and it's
really conflicting. It really is. And then you're fighting all sorts of things. But I really do have seen the rest. Can't talk. I really have seen research that really backs up the fact that 3 months prep is going to get you a far better outcome than if you don't do it. But again, it's you've got to weigh up. I think that's a really good way of looking at it, looking at the future and seeing. And I do get that a lot. So when people come to me after they've had one cycle of IVF, going, I wish I'd done this before. Yeah, because actually 3 months prep could actually mean the difference between needing IVF and not needing it. Yeah, as well. It's, addressing these things before might really make, potentially save you from even having to go for it in the first place.
Yes. And also the other thing that we've not discussed, but I'm just going to flag before we go.
Yes.
This idea around, because we're very much focusing on egg quality, because obviously that's the title of the pod. But the other thing to think about is sperm health in all of this.
Yes.
If you've got these tip-top quality eggs that have been, grown in a wonderful environment, and then you've got not great sperm, then these eggs are kind of being wasted or, not maximized to their full potential because sperm isn't good enough quality to fertilize them. And then, so again, it's really important that sperm is the best it possibly can be, so that those eggs have got the best opportunity to form an embryo.
Yeah, absolutely. And the egg can sort of make up for a certain element of crappy sperm, if you like, but it's not going to, it really needs to be, I think crappy is not a very good word. Maybe cut that bit out.
We know what you mean, Kirsty. Everyone listening to this knows what you mean.
But so it can compensate a bit for poor sperm parameters, but obviously the ideal situation is that you've got good both, good of each. Yeah. And that's the ideal situation. So, and that again is 3 months prep. Yeah. Really, isn't it, for sperm quality as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just thinking back again about that, to prep or not to prep, is around what is the state of your health at that time? Because, if you're generally well and your life, lots of people out there have good lifestyles anyway, they're doing all the things because they're just doing all the things. So if you feel like you're in a good place, there's no underlying autoimmune, you've kind of done all your blood tests, and it's
Yeah.
then there is an argument to say, like, crack on. But if you are going in knowing that, you're on the back of really stressy, busy lives and you're not been eating well, you've not been looking after yourself, there's different points of our lives where we look after each other better and worse.
Yeah.
Different points of the year, all those kind of things. So you know that. No one can tell you that. You have to kind of have that thought yourself. What have you been doing for the last 3 months? How's it been?
Yeah, this is very true. Yeah, exactly. And I think it is quite good to do a bit of that honest take stock, if you like, and really address what's going on and whether you think you might have any kind of. And many of us don't know that we might have nutrient deficiencies either, because we don't routinely test in this country. And if you've got any kind of digestive issue, that might be impacting it. The other thing I was going to talk about was methylation and egg quality as well. So methylation is essentially a biochemical process that regulates gene expression, DNA and cellular function, which are both critical for egg quality and early embryo development. And this is a really difficult one because we usually find this out when someone goes for IVF and the consultant says, oh, we think it might be egg quality. Then we would start looking at methylation. So it's a really difficult road to go down as to know when to test. But if you feel like egg quality is a real issue for you, then there is testing available that would help you understand that a bit more. Because methylation basically ensures that chromosomal stability and helps prevent genetic mutations as well. And poor methylation can lead to an increase in chromosome level abnormalities.
Okay.
Oh,
so for methylation, is there a test for it?
So there are a number of tests that you can do. Some are obviously better than others. A lot of people generally think that it's a case of understanding whether you've got an MTHFR variant, which to a certain element it is and it isn't. But it also your methylation, your DNA methylation pathways are really needed to support the Krebs cycle. And the Krebs cycle is what produces ATP. And if you remember earlier, we were talking about ATP and energy and all of that sort of kind of cellular processes. We need to make sure that your methylation pathways are optimized. Yeah, so that's something just to worth flagging at the end. But if you get told that egg quality is an issue, that there is a bit of further support that you can reach, that you can look to.
I presume that's the kind of work that you would need to do with a specialist like yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It is. Yeah. And there's lots of people around that can do it. I can do it as well. And also, it's another thing is methylation is really important for like hormone and detoxification processes as well. Like methylation's involved in everything. So making sure that that's not functioning suboptimally can be really useful for making sure that we're looking after our eggs.
Yeah. Okay, Kirsty, that is amazing. That is a lot of information in there. Really that it has been helpful to just give an overview of, the areas of which we have some control and the areas of which we don't have control. And what do we really mean when we talk about egg quality or your egg's bad and improving it and just kind of unpicking it a bit, because I feel like sometimes it gets a bit confusing. So thank you, Kirsty. We will put together a Foods for Egg Quality sheet, which will be free to download in the community. So if anyone wants that, it'll be on there, or you can message us on Instagram and we will send that out to you as well. So as always, Kirsty, thank you for your time. It is lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me.
See you again soon. Trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed and confused with unhelpful information and advice? This podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax. I'm your host, Hannah Pern, a fertility acupuncturist and passionate advocate for better fertility education and support. Our aim is to empower you with information to support your fertility journey and provide a community for connection with people who get where you're at. If you'd like to join us or work with us in clinic in London or across the UK, all the information is in the show notes at the end.